and slander against the Pacific Resource Partnership and the people working with them. We've distributed a press release, and you can certainly look at that. We're here to answer questions, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what this lawsuit is about and why it's been filed. This lawsuit is about big money for big lies. A group, many of them mainland contractors, we believe, a group of contractors working with the Carpenters Union has funded over $1 million and heading towards $2 million to spread things that are just not true. They've hired public relations people, they've put ads on TV, and they're running them day and night. And they're accusing Ben Cayetano, who is a person well-renowned for his integrity, for his reputation for independence, and they're accusing him of corrupt acts. And this has to stop. This lawsuit is going to hold them accountable for the money that they're spending and the speech that they're making. The suit is filed in the circuit court, and we expect that it will come to trial within a year to a year and a half. So we can't have it resolved before the election. But by filing it today, we take a stand against big money for big lies in our politics. This is a much bigger matter than just who wins this election. This is even bigger than rail. This is about the future for Hawaii's electoral system and whether we're going to allow it to be dominated by big money and whether or not we can have this Citizens United problem of big money coming and saying whatever they want on the television and on the radio waves. If they can do it to Ben Cayetano, who is a two-term governor, well-respected, ended with a surplus, doesn't have anything to prove to anyone. If they can do it to him, they can do it to anybody. And Ben is doing this not just for himself, but for young people coming up as public officials, people who want to do public service. How many of them are going to serve if they have to face this kind of big money for big lies? It's just not going to happen. So that's why we've drawn the line here, and that's what we're fighting for.
You know, one of the things that I want to be really clear about is my perspective is the same but a little different than Jim. And you know, when you keep lying and lying every day, every week, every month that they've done it to Ben, when you don't answer, people start to believe it's true. This lawsuit wasn't filed to affect an election. You wonder why there's Filipinos in these ads? I mean, one of Ben's biggest bases is in the Filipino community. So when these ads get Filipinos to say that Ben's a crook, people may start to believe it. Well, it's not true. I want to be really clear about this. This guy, Bob White, crawled out from under a rock.
John White.
John White, I'm sorry. Crawled out from under a rock. We have a two-term governor. We have a two-term lieutenant governor. And his message is, and this comes from White, that he stole honest government bed debt from the people. It's absolutely untrue. Bob Wattada voluntarily came forward, the head of campaign spending, to say Ben Cayetano is one of the most honest politicians he's ever known. Somebody has to stop a guy like White. He's trying to steal this election through money and power. We're not going to let that happen. Let him put his money where his mouth is now and defend himself and some of the people that wrote some of these ads and were wound up in the ads. We're not standing for it anymore. This is just the beginning. It's time to fight back, and we're going to do it.
We are happy to answer any questions that the press may have.
Jim, you mentioned you thought that contractors were involved in helping to fund this. Can you tell us of what you know so far regarding
Pacific Resource Partnership is the official label of the group. But when you go to the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, unlike most businesses and organizations in this state, they don't exist there. They haven't registered. The name isn't even registered. And yet here they are all over the airwaves and the television and the radio. So the question is, who is Pacific Resource Partnership? Who are these guys? Well, what we've discovered is it's a trade name for a union trust fund. The union trust fund is called the Hawaii Carpenters Union Market Recovery Fund. And although it has the name of the union on it, all of the money that's put in that fund comes from a couple of hundred general contractors, many of them based on the mainland. And that's the money that is funding these ads. We don't yet have the names of those companies. Part of the lawsuit will be to find out the names of those companies and add them as defendants. But that's where the money's coming from.
Jim, the individuals named in the lawsuit, there's various names. Are those the actors in the commercials? So some of those names?
No, we have not. We have not gone after the people who act in the commercials. These are just actors paid, presumably paid, to say those things. We're going after the people who are paying them, and we're going after the people who are writing the copy for the ads. We're going after the people who are organizing the whole operation. John White, the fellow that Mike mentioned, is the executive director of this outfit. The Hoakea Communications is their public relations company, and Barbara Tanabe and Jim McCoy are the people who do their public relations and write these ads.
As you know, libel and defamation lawsuits, when it involves a public figure, have a very high level of discovery and proof. What makes you think that John White and PRP knowingly knew that these statements they were making were false?
Well, first of all, we lay it out in the lawsuit. But John White has admitted to people that he knows that Ben did not break the law. But the statements that they make in the ads clearly imply that he did break the law. So you can't, in the law, know one thing to be true and say something else. And that's what they've done. Their argument is going to be that they took one little fact here out of context and another little fact here out of context, and one or two of those facts are true, and therefore they don't have the actual malice that's required. But the law doesn't look at that. The law says, what were you trying to convey? What was the meaning that you intended people to understand? Everyone who looks at these ads and hears them understands that they're intended to say that Ben Cayetano is corrupt, that he's a crook, that he broke the law. That was what they intended, and that they know is not true.
Is there a specific allegation, or is it just overall that you finally decided to file this lawsuit?
No, the sequence was this. After the first wave of these ads that ended in August, right around the time of the primary, there had been widespread criticism of Pacific Resource Partnership and John White in the media by some of you folks. I can list some of them: Richard Barreca, Dan Boylan, Ian Lind, Dave Shapiro. They have all said this is false. And when the ads stopped for a while in August and September, we thought that these folks had been shamed, that the press was sufficient. You know, the public opinion and the condemnation from respected neutral people was sufficient. The ads started up again 3 weeks ago, and we realized that if having these respected journalists and public officials like Bob Wattada call them out and say this is not true, if that's not going to stop them, the only thing that's going to stop them is to hit them where it counts, and that's in the wallet.
Do you know who John White said those statements that you're purporting that he knew that Cayetano?
Yeah, he said them in the press. You can Google it. He's actually admitted. He says, we know he didn't break the law, we just think it's morally wrong, is what he said.
Why aren't you seeking an injunction to stop the ads if they're...
The law doesn't permit us to restrain speech.
Okay.
It's a very good rule, I think. The only time you can sue, the only thing you can sue for is for money damages. The law does not allow injunctions to prevent speech.
Do you have any intentions of including the television or radio stations in the lawsuit, since they can also be culpable?
It's... did you just say television or radio? You didn't mention newspaper where you were.
Right. Well, we don't do ads on the site. So.
That is a good question. You know, the law does hold the media accountable when they run an ad. On the other hand, the media does have certain duties where they have to run certain ads. They can't just say no and yes. So we are studying that question. We would hope that when the media reads this lawsuit and then when they understand the allegations, that they'll be able to make their own decision about whether they should be running these ads.
Governor, can we hear from you about how all the ads have affected you and how you decided to pursue this lawsuit?
Well, you know, I've been in politics a long time, 28 years. Never been through a campaign like this. How the ads affected me personally, well, you know, I get frustrated, I feel humiliated. There are times when I feel very, very bad for my family because my wife and my kids really are hurt by these. And that in turn, I think really causes me to get a little emotional about things. So it hurts, you know, and I don't care how long you're in politics, you just can't brush these kind of things off.
Governor, is
let me just say one thing. When you look at this governor, and everybody knows where he came from and how tough he is, and all the fights he fought, when you get him to this level in his life, when you start calling him names like this, a thief, a briber, those kinds of things, and they bring him down to this level, these guys need to be paid back. This is disgusting. What you're seeing now, what's happened to Ben Cayetano because of these lies for 6 months, something's going to be done about it.
Governor, what bothers you the most? Is it the push polls or the ads, or is it overall, or the emails, or what? Was it something that struck you that that you can talk about a little bit?
This seems to be a very sophisticated attack. Not only are they on the ground passing out brochures, they have these blogs, emails, television ads, radio ads, all put together. You know, you feel this the strength of this attack against me, but it's not so much about just me. You know, I'm not going to be in politics very long. I think that what's important is that for the people to recognize that since the Supreme Court's ruling, this may be a new era in politics, and the people, I think, of this city have to decide whether they want to allow these kind of things to go on or put a stop to it. And that's what this lawsuit is all about.
Do you blame this ad campaign for you not getting through the primary as a victor?
Well, our poll, we took a post-primary poll, and our poll indicated that maybe about 5% of those who responded to the question, have you seen the PRP ads and has your opinion of Ben Cayetano changed? About 5% or so replied yes, that it changed to the negative, more unfavorable. And that 5% was important back then, but that wasn't their strategy to take me into the general election, and that's where we are today.
How much of an impact do you think it's having with respect to the general election?
Well, it's hard to say, but I get feedback all the time from people, supporters who say, Ben, you got to do something about this, because people I talk to and ask for them to support you usually ask, well, what about these allegations? And that's why we're responding in a way that we're responding now. You in the press may remember that when during the primary, I basically held press conferences and responded in kind to these attacks. But as Jim and Mike pointed out, they've had no impact. These guys just want to continue to do this. They don't care. I think, frankly, that they probably have some very, very sophisticated people, looking at how to strategize this and how to develop the schemes that are going to, attack me. And I think that by the time this lawsuit gets underway, these two lawyers here, Jim Bickerton is known in this state as one of probably the top lawyer when it comes to defamation cases. He's a tremendous trial lawyer in his own right. And Mike Green is maybe, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he's probably one of the top trial lawyers in this state as well. And I have every faith that these two guys will expose or unveil what's behind all this.
Is this a precedent-setting lawsuit? I don't remember this ever happening in Hawaii, but I'm not sure if that.
Ask Jim, he knows all about this stuff.
Okay.
Well, libel cases, kind of like campaign contribution limits, have kind of gone out of style. we used to have a lot of them. If you look in the law books, there was Abercrombie versus McClung, and there was Nishiki versus Beamer, and all these old cases.